This is a 4-pack of NP-F970 style batteries. It includes a 4-channel 100-watt power delivery charger. So I was sent this to review for free. If you wanted to purchase it, it would cost you about $180. They haven't paid me for my review, and my opinions remain my own. Alright, the box has a pretty intricate piece of foam that holds the charger and the 4 batteries pretty securely. It comes with a USB-C to C power cable, and this charger requires a 100-watt power delivery supply, but they do not include the power supply itself. So it's up to you to provide your own power supply to plug this guy in to charge these batteries. Alright, so these look like very standard NP-F batteries. They're marked with a 7.8 amp hour, 7.4 volt nominal, and 57 watt hour capacity. And this charger has 2 switches, which I'm assuming are to detect if it's a short battery or a long battery, because when you put the battery in, the long battery here pushes both switches down. And I'm assuming that makes how much power goes into each of these batteries change based on if it's a 550 versus a 970. Alright, so this is what the charger looks like with 4 batteries plugged in. You can see that the display is kind of hidden down in all of those batteries, and so you're going to have to look down into the charger to see that display. Now, this is a desktop charger. There's no hooks or no way to put it on the wall, and it kind of requires the gravity here to hold these batteries in. Now, they are pinched. There's kind of a friction fit little grippy pincher things, so when you put a battery in this guy and push it down, I say it requires gravity, but it is held in there pretty well. Okay, the manual comes in many different languages. There's only about 2 pages in English. And reading about this guy, it basically says, hey, each of these channels can support charging at 8.4 volts. The default is 0.9 amps. So if neither of these switches are pushed, like a really small battery, it's going to do 0.9 amps. If the first switch is pushed, it's going to go up to 1.8 amps. And if the second switch is pushed, it's going to go to 2.5 amps. So with these larger 970 batteries, when you push that down and push both switches, supposedly that thing will be doing 8.4 volts at 2.5 amps. And there is also an OLED screen in here, and there's a button that's the screen wake button. It says for USB-C input, it needs a 12 volt, 15 volt, or 20 volt supply. So you can't just charge this with like a little 9 volt USB-C power delivery adapter. You need, something to do at least 12 volts, if not 20 volts, to get full power going in here. So maximum wattage on a big battery like this is going to be 21 watts according to the specification. So it needs at least 84 watts if you're charging 4 of the large batteries at the same time. So 12 volts at 1.5 amp is only 18 watts. That's barely enough for 1 battery. 15 volts at 3 amps is 45 watts, so you could charge 2 batteries at full capacity. But you're really going to need a power adapter that can do 20 volts, 5 watts to get that full 100 watts in here if you want to do full speed charging on all 4 batteries. Alright, so according to my cable tester, this is a USB 2.0 cable that is rated at 20 volts, 5 amps. So the cable they provide is appropriate for the 20 volt, 5 amp, or 100 watt need of this device. Alright, so size-wise, it's a little bulky. I've seen 4-port chargers, that are smaller than this guy, but it's not outrageously sized. Now, the port for the USB-in is over here, and if you look at this guy, you'd kind of think, oh, that must be the back. But it's not really the back, because if you see the screen here, it's meant to be oriented this way with channel 1 facing you, and then you can read what's on the screen, which is relatively small text, but basically has channel 1, 2, 3, 4, if you push the button, it just says, hey, my input is okay, it's 20 volts, currently 0 watts, 0 amps, 26 degrees centigrade. So you can flip between, your channel display and your kind of input display. Now, if you push a button here, it will say, hey, look, I'm going to try to charge this battery, and it says, oh, look, the battery's fully charged because the voltage is all the way up. So it's really using these buttons to indicate, is there a battery there or not? So it's very physical that way. So I'm going to plug in one of these batteries. They came from the factory. We'll see what it does here. And so this battery from the factory is now flashing a single bar there. So it looks like it's somewhat discharged from the factory. If I push this button once, now it says, oh, look, we're drawing 0.9 amps, 19 watts. So it must be putting about 19 watts into the battery. Maybe a little bit less, maybe 18 watts in the battery. Now, theoretically, it's supposed to be putting 21 watts in there. Maybe it'll go up to 21 after the battery's been charged a bit. So let's put in the rest of these batteries, or at least 2 more of them, so we can still easily see the display. So now I have batteries charging in 3 of the 4 slots, and they all are kind of on that single bar, although the channel 3 battery that I had in there now has moved up 1 bar. So it looks like it says, well, it's a little bit charged. I'm up to my 2nd bar of flashing here. If I tap this button, it says, oh, my input's 19.8 volts, 2.9 amps. I'm drawing 59 watts, so just about 60 watts, so almost 20 watts per battery. Now, when you put the last battery in, it kind of blocks your display of this thing unless you're looking straight down from the top. It also makes it harder to push the button. Not impossible, just harder. And so now it says I'm drawing 79 watts. So almost 80 watts, so about 19 watts per battery is what's going in here. So I'm going to leave this guy and charge these batteries all the way up. Now, if these are almost 60 watt-hour batteries, it's putting in about 20 watt-hours. That could take up to 3 hours, especially if they start kind of tapering their charge level when they hit about 80%. So it could take up to 4 hours to charge these guys. We'll see, how long it takes. They may not be fully discharged. At least 2 of them are now at their 2nd flashing battery bar. So I don't think they were kind of 50% from the factory. I think they were shipped relatively low, maybe 20 or 30% charge from the factory. But we'll come back and check on them in a while. Alright, I put a meter on here. It's reporting 19.8 volts. This guy here is reporting 19.6 volts. It says 4.27 amps. That says 3.9 amps. This guy says 78 watts. This guy here says 84 watts. So they don't agree. This guy here seems to be a little more conservative. It's possible that's the number of watts that are going into the batteries, and this is the number of watts the whole thing is drawing. So that's a 5 watt difference, which seems kind of reasonable for, charging circuitry, taking the 19 volts and stepping it down to 8.4 volts for each battery. So the watt and amp readings here and the voltage, I'd say, are all just slightly under what it's actually drawing from your power delivery charging device. Now, you do have to provide your own 100 watt power delivery adapter, so that is an added cost that you have to factor in here if you don't already have one of those. So I've reset the watt hour counter here. These guys were charging for a couple minutes before I put the meter on, but I think we're going to get an idea of how many total watt hours it takes to charge up all 4 of these batteries. So this guy's been going for maybe 25 minutes, and it says it's up to 44 centigrade, and it is actively cooled. There's a small fan inside. You can hear it going. The fan didn't turn on initially. I think it only turns on when it gets up to above a certain temperature. So because it's actively cooling the electronics, I'm less worried about it overheating and maybe throttling back due to an overheating issue. Alright, this guy's been running for more than an hour. It still says 82 watts there and 89 watts here, so it's charging basically full speed. And the batteries have, it looks like, 2 solid bars, and the 3rd bar is flashing. Okay, all 4 batteries are showing solid 4 bars here. No flashing. It says it's delivering 0.6 watts, so it says it's delivering about 6 watts to the batteries. Down here we're actually Now here it's jumping kind of between 2 watts, 1 watt, 2 watts, 4 watts, so it's kind of bouncing around up there. So the batteries are just about charged if they're not fully charged, and it's taken 180 watt hours, put 180 watt hours into all 4 of these batteries, so that's about 45 watt hours per battery. So I'm going to let it run just a little bit longer. It says it's like 0.3 amps. I'm not sure if it's trickle charging the last little bit or if this is just how much it takes, but I'm going to let it sit for a little bit longer just to make sure all these batteries are fully charged. Alright, in the last hour it's gone from 180 to 185 watt hours. It's only drawing like 1.6 to 2.5 watts. So none of these things are flashing. This guy in here says it's doing 6 watts. I think it's basically completely done charging these batteries. Now I'm going to take out all but one of the batteries, and we'll see if the watt draw goes down at all here. So yeah, it went down a little bit. It's down to 1. I've seen it hit 1.5, kind of between 0.96 and 1.5 watts. So like with one battery in, it still is drawing a little tiny bit of power. This thing says 3 watts instead of 6 watts now. So if I take the last battery out, it actually is still drawing about the same amount of power. So it looks like it's taking about 1 watt just to run the electronics. Now this guy here says 0 watts, 0 amps, 20 volts. So I think this is what it's putting into the batteries, and this is what it's actually drawing in. So snapping in devices, I have this battery back plate, and this guy grabs via the side snaps, and it grabbed that just fine. These little side protrusions there are correctly sized. Kind of standard light where this thing pops in the back and then pushes into the side, and it clips into there just appropriately as well. Right, I have 2 of these lights. They're identical lights. They are 20 watt lights is how they're advertised, so they're supposed to take 20 watts. I have one set to a very warm white, and I have the other set to a cool white. They're both lighting up a clock. And I have my time-lapse camera watching this system, and so we will be able to see at what point these lights turn off. So given that the batteries are rated at like 57 watt hours, I would expect at least 2 hours, at least 40 watt hours out of them, and maybe up to 3 hours. So we'll see at what point they turn off. I'm starting it here at 4:05 p.m. And we'll see how much capacity they have and how long they run these lights. Alright, my first light went out at 7:31 p.m. and so that is 3 hours and about 26 minutes after we turned it on. So that's plenty of runtime for that light. The other light went out just immediately after that. So it's about 7:44, I think it was. Let's see. Yeah, 7:44. So we're getting 3.5 hours of runtime on these batteries with my 20 watt lights. Alright, I ran both of these batteries down until my lights turned off, and now we're charging them back up. I've reset the watt hour counter, and we're going to see how many watt hours it takes to charge up these 2 batteries. Now, they're specified to have about a 57 watt hour capacity each, so I'm expecting to have, more than about 114 watt hours going in. With inefficiencies of the charging, I would expect that to be probably 120, 130 watt hours to charge these guys if they are their full capacity. Alright, we have solid bars on these 2 batteries. Now it is still drawing, between 3 and 6 watts, so I'm not 100% sure they're completely, fully charged, but the charger claims they're fully charged, and they're not charging much. And so right now it's at 139 watt hours, so that's basically 70 watt hours per battery, and they're rated at 57 or almost 60 watt hours. So it does look like these guys could be 57 watt hour capacity batteries. Given the amount of time they ran the lights, the fact that we have more power going in than they're rated at, I think that the claims on the battery faceplates here are accurate, and it really is a 57 watt hour battery. Alright, I've left these two guys on the charger for quite a while now, and they are definitely fully charged. You know, it's like drawing 1.5 amps just to run the charger. It took 145 watt hours to charge up those two batteries, so that's about 70 some watt hours each, like 72 watt hours each. Now, the nameplate specification on these batteries says that they are 57 watt hour batteries, and so I'm willing to believe that. They had a long runtime on my lights, and it took more than that to power them up. You know, so considering the efficiency losses of charging and discharging, I do believe their nameplate specifications are legit here. I just plugged another NP-F battery I have in here, and this charger is working with other brands of batteries just fine. It's, you know, putting in 20 watts into this battery. Alright, so you get four very solid NP-F970 compatible batteries, meet their specifications, they work well. You get this charger, it works well. I would call it kind of basic. You know, it has small battery, medium-sized battery, large battery settings. It doesn't work, like if you don't have power, I've seen some smart charger where you put a battery in and it will at least tell you like the battery charge level being powered by the battery. It doesn't do anything like that, it's just a charger. It takes up a little more desk space than some other smart chargers I've seen. The display really doesn't tell you much. It tells you if your power supply is okay, you know, so it'll tell you, okay, you have a good input power supply here. It tells you the current temperature, gives you the 20 volt input level and how many amps and watts it's drawing. Plus it gives you kind of 4 bars like on the battery, like kind of a percentage, you know, 0 to 25, 25 to 50, 50 to 75, 75 to 100 level. Perfectly serviceable. It charges them pretty quick. You know, you got 20 watt charging. Nothing special about it. Also, I don't know why all the desktop chargers I've seen have the cable coming in the side or the front. I want a cable coming in the back. Now, realistically, this guy is symmetrical enough that you could just leave it on your desk that way. This guy is kind of reading off to the sideways, but it doesn't really matter because you really don't use that for too much. You know, you might glance at it to say, oh, well, that battery's full, I can take it off again. But, you know, so the charger works, the batteries work. It really comes down to a price point of, do you want to spend that much money? Do you need the charger that comes with the batteries or not? That type of thing for, you know, this entire package if you want to get the package.